project that we heard about yesterday. I wasn't anticipating that we were going to be voting on anything last month, and I didn't vote yay, and I thought that was an abstention, but I realized that it wasn't. I sent a note to Mark, but I wanted to go officially on record with that. Now that a month has gone by, I don't think it's fair to remain abstained if I'm correcting the record. So it's academic at this point, but I should go on the record to say that that's not a proposal that I'm in favor of.
Are you
still
abstaining, or are you voting no?
No, I know. I understand that you can't revote, which is fine, but I'm correcting. Well, I'm correcting the minutes because I didn't vote yay.
Well, you can correct the minutes that you didn't vote yay, but you can't correct the minutes.
I understand that. I understand that the vote can't change,
Okay.
which is fine. But I don't think I think it's unfair for me to not give an opinion after that. So I'm giving my opinion in that.
The minutes reflect what happened at the meeting. If you'd like to express something else, that's fine. But
And we can do that during other business, but we can change the minutes to reflect your abstention.
Yes.
And then, if you want to bring that up during old and new business, we can do that.
Okay.
Okay. Dave?
I just wanted to say, in the wording of the minutes, there was a little bit of a dialogue on the fact that Mr. Evans, I guess, had decided that he did not want to make a presentation to the commission until after the two hearings, I guess. I'm not sure exactly how that all went down. But when you read the minutes, it should be reflecting that he came after the fact, so to speak. And the discussion was really, from my standpoint, what precluded you from coming before? What was in your decision? Because we've had some other cases that have bypassed this commission, which I think is very important. For instance, I'm thinking of the marijuana project, which bypassed this commission. So I'd like to see us consider, not in the minutes now, but later on, some kind of a mandatory type of thing, not that they're obligated to come before us, but that we are sure that they are well aware of it and that by their own decision, they don't want to come before us.
Okay. Well,
But that's a different
that's not a
subject.
change in the minutes,
No, it's
though.
not a change, it's just to
I'll be
reflect.
glad to address that later on, too.
Okay.
Tom did explain it.
Right. Right. So do I have a motion to amend the minutes? Well, are there any other comments about the minutes? Do I have a motion to amend the minutes with indicating Jay's abstention on the vote? As a
Motion,
change?
do we need a motion for that? Okay.
Motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We're going to move Carolyn up if anybody's opposed, because she needs to,
Nancy?
Sarah.
Sarah, oh my gosh. I'll have my coffee soon. I'm looking at Carolyn.
What am I going to say?
September Gloria.
I apologize.
I'm like, am I saying something?
It's been a long day already. 4:30 is early.
I also just, thank you for moving me up. I apologize. I hope that I'm not contagious. I don't think that I am.
We only breathe
But
on
I'm-
me.
But I'm going to the doctor at 8. And Lisa Hepburn wanted me to let you know that she is also under the weather today and will not be able to make it. Completely unrelated. I didn't get her sick. Just a couple of things. We finished the Taste in Simsbury last month. It was the last Thursday in August. Very well attended by everybody that went. And, this event draws not only Simsbury residents, but from tourists from all over the state and actually into Massachusetts and sometimes neighboring states. The Simsbury 1820 House and the Simsbury Main Street Partnership are partnering together to do a travelogue poster competition. A travelogue poster competition is, and I can show you examples in the next month, but it's essentially it would be a poster that captures Simsbury's spirit. We're going with the heritage, charm, and adventure that has been our tagline for the last 8 or 9 years. And we're inviting artists from all over the Farmington Valley to compete. They can submit at least one submission. There are rules online as to exact size. 12 finalists will have their work displayed at an exhibit at the 1820 House. It'll run from November 7th through December 13th. There's going to be an opening reception on Friday, November 7th from 5:30 to 7 p.m. I invite the commissioners to join us. And then visitors will be able to vote for their favorites throughout the month, and the top 3 finalists will be awarded cash prizes. And then we will take their the renderings, and we'll create different things with them, different products potentially with them. Couple of other things. This is going to be a very busy weekend in Simsbury. We have the Simsbury Fly-In. We have the Women's Arts and Crafts Festival. I believe there's a lecture at the Free Library. So there's a ton of stuff going on this weekend. The Grange, I'm sorry, absolutely, the Simsbury Grange Fair as well. Last week one was also very successful with Septemberfest and the book club, the book sale, which again draws visitors from all over the country, as I think the Tourism Committee found out and SCTV found out. So went very well. Main Street helped to arrange the Our Town tent for the Simsbury organizations at Septemberfest again. And we will be talking about tourism on a panel that will be hosted by Dominic Avery. It'll be Main Street and Tourism Committee, talking about a lot of the national exposure we've had, both with, things like Martin Luther King, Preserve America, Dozen Distinctive Destinations, but then also through things like the Drake Hill Flower Bridge and some of the stuff that's really been attracting people, the wedding destination, and we're attracting people from all over the country, as Connecticut is a same-sex weddings state. So, we're getting people from all over the country to come and visit Simsbury. And that's it for now. Questions? But I'm sorry. I've got to go.
You feel better? Hiram, they're scheduled to do the presentation at 8:15?
Supposed to be here now.
Okay.
So.
So we will just go on to the next agenda item. Task force update, Nancy.
Yes. I saw in your agenda that you had Jeff on there, but I think that
I don't know.
just take one of those and pass it down there, Dave. And I sent this to you all electronically this morning, part of the monthly updates I send along to you guys, but our August meeting, actually a lot of folks couldn't attend, so we didn't have a regularly scheduled meeting. However, the chairs from the various working groups were able to provide an update to Hiram, Sarah, and myself, and so that's what you see in front of you. We've had a lot of great discussion among the groups, the working groups, and at our next meeting, the chairs will be informing in a bit more detail the full Economic Development Task Force. At our July meeting, some of the members talked about spending a little bit more time together. We've been breaking out, as I said, a lot and having a lot of discussions, and now we want to bring ourselves back together, provide an update to the larger group, and then we will break out again, and what you see in front of you are a couple of short and long-term goals that the task force working groups are going to move forward with. And just to briefly review those, I think, of course, we were here before you last month discussing the town website. So we're going to put together an RFP for what it would take to put together a new site, but simultaneously also work with Rick, good time, and Hiram and staff to look at trying to implement in the short term some of the discussions that have been had here amongst the board with a little bit of reorg to the content. And so we think we can accomplish some of those things simultaneously, but of course, having the task force recognize the importance of really having an economically driven town website, non-competing brands against having two different websites. And so that will be in the works, and we'll be sure to bring that information back to this board and, of course, on to the Board of Selectmen, because it will have certainly a funding mechanism attached with that. The other thing, and I should back up and say, some of the discussion has been around the 1995 economic plan that was done for the town some time ago, and how some of those things certainly have become a little bit outdated, but some of them are really quite relevant. So if any of you have not seen that report, and Hiram's going to, I think, scan that so we can, back in 1995, it was not done electronically. So, but there's a lot of really relevant information, and some of that information pertains to the role of the Economic Development Commission. So the marketing group is going to take on re-examining a portion of that plan that pertains to the role of the EDC and kind of work through putting some stuff together. And of course, without a doubt, your input on that would be extremely important and critical to updating that information and setting a roadmap for the EDC. And then, that's my phone, sorry.
Just trying to figure out if that was my phone, but I think my phone's on. Yeah.
It's a redo from last month, so sorry. Now it's your turn.
You remind me.
So moving on to programs, the programs group, and Deb Bernard, who chairs that, Hiram, and a couple of folks have been doing a little off-time work on really looking at some incentives. We, I think, talked about the fact that we looked at the tax abatement program that we currently have, that we previously had an infrastructure program. So Hiram has a great report from the CCM that really looks at what's offered across the state within various communities. And so that group is going to be culling through all that information and making recommendations to really put together 3 of what we think will be the most effective programs to put forward for the town, and one of which, of course, like I said, is the tax abatement, and looking at how that is currently structured, and if some changes and such could be made to that to really boost that. And I mentioned, actually I was at the Chamber of Government Affairs meeting on Tuesday morning giving them an update, and I said all these things really, as they're done, are meant to be marketed themselves. So when we talk about the incentives that we'll put together and the fact that we'll be talking about that we've been through this process and we're bringing some new and some enhanced things to the forefront is important to share with the larger community. And second to the programming is developing a project rating system for the EDC. So what we really talked about, and this goes right back to some of the branding, is the things that are important to our town, and not only just that speak to the brand, but also speak to where we want to go with the vision of the community. And so as projects are brought forward and you folks are talking about them, what are you benchmarking against, whether you think that's a good project or not for the town? So again, a little bit of discussion back to the strategic plan with that, but moving forward, they had some great ideas they think they can pull together for that. And last but not least, the process group has had a lot of discussion around the boards and commissions. And so they're going to be putting together some recommendations around professional certification process. So, when you come on board as a land use member, sort of an orientation, but also an ongoing education. Legislation changes and things as basic and as, in the beginning stages of becoming a board member, FOI, Robert's Rules of Order, some different things like that. And I think with today's LMS systems that are so readily available electronically, there's a lot of stuff that we can do that will be very convenient for folks. And so they're looking to put together some recommendations in that regard. And then second would be recommendations to improve and streamline the process. Hiram was before the Board of Selectmen on Monday night, and he gave some great updates around some of the projects that are going on in town, and talking about the PAD and the role that that's had, and the improvement of the process and the role that's had, and some of the successes that we're having. But that there's always room for improvement, and that group has been talking a lot about that and where they want to take that to the next level. And so they'll be putting some recommendations against that. So that's it.
Couple questions. So in terms of the RFP for the website, I think was it last month where we said, yeah, go ahead and do it. Mm-hmm. So has the RFP gone out yet?
No. Actually, we were talking about having Rick come to the next marketing meeting with the folks and talk about sort of what that would entail. And then Jeff Dornenberg and Carolyn, they've already talked about how they would put together that scope and get that out there. Also talking about some of the short-term goals that we could take on as well. So, do you have an ETA in terms of? I was going to say, I think we meet on the 16th, and certainly we can provide an update more in the short term versus waiting to come back to you in October with that. So the group could probably let you know the time frame associated with that. I think it's important. We talked about we're really close to, believe it or not, so already starting the budget process. So we're very much aware of that and wanting to know sort of the very high-level details of cost and timing associated with doing something like that. So I think they're eager to get that information and get it back to you guys.
Okay. And on the programs, it sounds like that's still a work in progress, but is there anything that you could share in terms of what folks have been thinking about in terms of the financial incentives that the EDC should be considering? So it sounds like you guys want to put together kind of a rubric of sorts in terms of, gee, something comes here, we're going to evaluate it and giving us some kind of basis of evaluation. Are there any, and I understand it's not, kind of fully baked yet,
Yep.
but can you just give us like some idea, some sense of, gee, here's some of the things that we're kind of
To benchmark and
oriented to?
measure.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the things that was really actually came to mind is we had Yvonne Klein, who's the commissioner of the Connecticut Department of Housing, come in and speak to the task force, and they really evaluated the inventory of the town and said, 1 and 2 bedroom apartments are very much needed in our community. Condominiums, apartments, I should say, just 1 and 2 bedroom units. So, if there's a project that says, geez, this is going to help fill our void, it kind of puts it in the plus column for things like that. So, there's a lot more that will go into that as well, but I think looking at projects and from an economic vitality and sustainability perspective, and again, speaking back to what we want our community to grow as, that those things will be, part of that list.
Okay, and I don't want to get off on a tangent on this by any means, but why do we need 1 and 2 bedroom apartments and condos? Like, why is that a need?
Chris wants to speak to that, probably can better than I can, but.
I mean, I understand there may not be enough of them, but why do we need them?
Well, many of the studies that have been done show that there is a need for rental units, not only in Farmington Valley, but in Simsbury. And the studies that have been done indicate that. I mean,
It's really a workforce thing.
it's a workforce.
I think there's another big component to it in terms of the Economic Development Commission, is that there's an economic driver that's related to those units and getting young workers and young people to move to town and fill that particular niche that doesn't exist in certainly great supply now.
And
That's the
they-
economic connection.
Right, and then we also talked about sort of as your inventory rotates and people rotate through your inventory. So if you get somebody in as a millennial in a 1 or 2 bedroom unit, they often become a buyer or, move on to a larger unit. So, and at the same time.
Well, it's
sort of-
cyclical because
Yes.
as people downsize, they
Exactly.
choose not to own a home anymore, but want to remain in the community until they retire. And
the age of our inventory too was another aspect of
yeah.
the conversation. So, trying to kind of refresh that. That's one of the reasons West Street has had such a huge success, is because people were really looking for something that's new. So
There's currently a waiting list at the rental units over behind the mill for people trying to get into town. And the project that Powder Forest brought before here, I don't know where it is in the land use boards, but included rental units as well.
Right. The PAD, the Powder Forest PAD,
Yes.
which had 3 components to it, right?
Right.
That's as soon as they get enough of a backlog, I'm sure they'll begin to start that as well. As you know, the same developers working in Carson Way right now.
Right.
right.
Has there been any discussion in terms of what the nature of these units would be? I mean, because there's different types of rental units.
Right, and I think actually Landmark Partners / what they are now, being but
It's Nelson Construction.
Nelson Construction, did a great job in talking about the different levels of inventory that they had and recognizing that they needed to do that. So that I believe the Powder Forest is a level that is not quite as expensive as the West Street are. So they're very aware of filling niches within the community so that they can have success and they're not themselves creating more inventory at different levels than would make them successful. So.
I mean, there's a need for both market rate and high-end rentals because as people who own larger homes want to move into a rental unit, they don't want to necessarily downsize their lifestyle in terms of what the amenities they have in their home. So it's a higher end market for some people, and then we need to attract the young people.
Yeah, I mean, it's a couple different, I mean, I think for the young people, and I don't want this to be a big discussion of.
We've got a lot to talk about, so hurry up.
I'm sorry, I didn't have somewhere else to be. So, I mean, for the millennial piece, I just think it's worth noting that it's a bit the cart before the horse in that aspect, because we need to bring jobs into Simsbury. I mean, I think the number. I mean, I think what's going to make a more compelling case for why we need housing for millennials is if, for example, something gets done with the Hartford property, or we have other initiatives that are bringing fast-growing businesses into Simsbury. They're going to actually hire these people.
Yeah, and I kind of look at it simultaneously, especially given Chris's comment, if there's a waiting list. So you know that you've got a need out there, and the more feet on the street, the more people in the area, the more vibrancy that you have here. Those things will happen simultaneously. So I think creating or filling the void that already exists at the same time while you're creating that inventory, looking towards trying to get out there and attract businesses and having the inventory for those folks, they certainly don't want to come here and say, oh, do I have to wait 2 or 3 years for stock to be built for my employees to come in? So you kind of want to be, working on both aspects.
Well, and we're doing a great job with tourism and really branding the town and talking about why it's great to live here, but we've got nowhere for them to move to. So, and a lot of
creating the demand before
we're creating the demand before we've got the supply, and many of their jobs are not jobs that we typically think of where they sit in an office. A lot of them are work from home, or it could be entrepreneurs, or they travel a lot and they want the lifestyle, but they've got to find a place to live. So there's some of that going on too.
Yeah.
So.
So any other questions for me, or? Again, I sent this to you guys electronically, so please take a look. And
your next meeting is the 16th?
The next meeting is the 16th at 5 p.m. We're starting out in the Board of Ed conference room, and then the groups will break out from there into engineering and a couple other rooms in Town Hall. So we welcome you to come, and certainly if you can't, just provide some input, and we'll continue to update you guys as we move along.
Okay. Thank you. Next item on the agenda was to discuss the website. It's not with Jeff, but Mark is away, and we talked a little bit about, we wanted to discuss with Rick what the possibilities are of enhancing our page as it stands, while the task force is looking at the town website and putting out the RFP. So I think we have an opportunity to maybe add content to our page within the current structure without, I could certainly volunteer to help you do that, in order to kind of accomplish some of the goals that we wanted short term. Yeah. Okay. Does anybody have any other questions about what the next steps are in the website process, or we've talked about it enough? Okay. Nancy, would you like to do your report while we're waiting for?
Sure. Very short and sweet, I think. Thank you.
Thank you.
All needed some color this
It's haunted golf.
It's haunted miniature golf.
It's that time of year.
Wasn't it just last week? Anyway, yes. Yeah, you go. Whoever wants it. Hot off the press, so I figured before we ran out of the good ones, you could have them. But this is crunch time for the end of the guide, so we're firming up our membership, and we have a guide cover contest going on, and hopefully that will be out right in the midst or right after Haunted Miniature Golf. So that is always a continuing project for us, because it certainly is our signature print piece. Monday is our annual meeting. It's going to include not only little updates on what's going on, what has been going on, and what's going on for the future of FABA, a little bit of the end of our 20th anniversary and election of officers, and then the presentation ceremony for the first ever Effie Awards. We decided to end our, I hope are you guys getting emails?
Yep, I am.
Okay. If everybody isn't, I need email addresses, and I apologize, and I'll get it to you. We decided that we're really not competing with the Advocate or Hartford Mag, but it was time that we acknowledged as a Valley organization everybody's favorites from our membership, beginning from our membership and going beyond. So we named it like the Tonys and the Effies and the Obies, the FVs, EF-VEE. So we started with 12 categories, and I cannot divulge any of the results. I will say that, oh, come on now, just like the Oscars and the Emmys, I can. But I will say that Simsbury was very well represented, and definitely Simsbury will come out of that meeting with an award or maybe two. So it is 5:30 at Farmington Gardens. If anybody would like to come, it's a very expensive evening. It's a donation if you'd like to give of $5. And then we have lovely food and carving stations and dessert. So if you want to, we'd love to see you. From that, we go straight into this. 100 Miniature Golf. It is 8 days, starting October 16th through the 19th, and then 23rd to the 26th. So we are getting our sponsors in line. We have new things to put up in each one of the decorated holes, and I've already arranged for the donuts, for the donut dangle. If you don't know what that is, you need to come over with a friend or an enemy or a family member and see who can eat the powdered sugar donut first from a string that moves.
Are children free?
No, this is our signature and only big fundraiser. So everybody's $10. Everybody's $10.
5 kids, that'd be a lot.
I know. Some people do that. No, but kids under 2 are free pretty much because they're not doing anything except walking around. But in any case, this is our fundraiser, so it is $10 a person. It's been that way for 4 years now, and we get close to 2,500 people through in 8 days, and hopefully more. After that, the next thing in the pipeline is our Fall Historic Sites Lecture on cemeteries, and what we're concentrating on is headstones and why they're made the way they are, what the symbols are, and their placements. And Lisa Johnson, who's the executive director of Stanley Whitman House, is presenting the lecture, and it will be November 16th. Its current location is up in the air, but I should have that. And other than that, I will miss next month's meeting. We have a 100 Miniature Golf meeting at 8 o'clock, a little early because I'll be in California the following week for my daughter's wedding. So we moved up things. Yes. So finally, it'll be over. It'll be a wonderful weekend, but it'll be over. So I will certainly update you and or Mark.
Okay.
If something is going on. Questions? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, where'd Hiram go off to? Oh, there he is. He's up. Baby, your turn.
Okay. I was just calling the applicant to see if they're remembered your appointment. Or whether they put PM instead of AM, I'm not sure. They're not in their office, so we'll see what happens. I think I talked on, was it Monday night, to the Board of Selectmen? These sort of blend together a little bit once in a while. About the number of projects. We actually have about 14 different projects going on right now. Talked to Chamber Government Affairs meeting the other morning as well. Some of the projects are already in the ground. They're in the way. I think I talked to you before about the specialty housing at the north end. That's well underway. That building is pretty impressive in terms of its size, and that's coming along pretty well. The East Point Apartments across the street at Dorset Crossing from that as well. I just started a framing yesterday, and so they expect to have some of those apartments ready this year. Their first building should be ready this year, and then they'll go from there, see how it fills up and how rapidly it fills up. But it's actually moving along pretty quickly as well.
Moving a little bit down the street to the Big Y property, everybody always wants to know what's the status of the Big Y property. The last thing I was told is that they'll begin to break ground in September. That's this September, 2014, as I understand it. And I believe that everything else has been worked out. I've seen the final plans actually are on my desk now. The building is still about 50,000 square feet. It was originally about 52,000 square feet or 53, but it's right around 50,000 square feet now. They've changed the footprint slightly, but nothing significant.
Originally it was 75,000, all right?
No, it was never that big, Dave. It was 53 at max, and then it came down to 51, and now it's like 49.8, something like that. It's still just about the same exact size.
Well, when they made a presentation to us, I think originally it was 75 they were contemplating. I don't say that was the application, but.
Yeah. The one that actually got approved by the zoning commission was right around 53,000. So further down in the center of town, the former Webster Bank building, that all of you know, 690 Hop Meadow Street, the developer is being in for their second informal presentation to the Design Review Board and Zoning Commission on Monday, the 15th, and we'll talk a little bit about how that design has evolved. They're going to preserve the existing building that's there and then surround it with some apartments or condominiums, whatever, some residential unit behind that. The number of exact units has changed over time in order to make the numbers work. Originally, they came in with only 12 units, and the numbers didn't work because they contemplated that they would have had to sell those units for about $650,000 or $700,000. In the center of town, it's not going to work. I think everybody knows that. I mean, Chris could live right across the street from where you work or whatever, but it's not going to happen. So the number of units is going to be probably slightly larger, so that they can make that project pencil out. A little further down the road, the other project that people always want to know about is what's going on with the Hartford. I can tell you they're in constant contact with the Hartford. They have agreed to become involved in what's called a Quick Tracks program to help move the permitting of that process along. Last weekend, I went to New York and met with some people that are interested in the project, and they are talking to some investors about the project. There are 2 or 3 other people that are talking to the Hartford directly now. Those plans and those discussions are all between their realtor and the Hartford, not public discussions. There's nothing really that I can give you in terms of information of the status of them, but there are a number of ongoing discussions about what's going to happen with that property. I think, as I've said before, we have about a year before the Hartford actually vacates the building. So probably by the end of next year, middle to the end of next year, is when they'll actually leave. So there's a little bit of leeway, a little window to move things forward, and that's what we're continually trying to do. So that's what's going on in that area. You all know the Pool Barn building was discussed a little bit earlier, that the mixed-use development there is up for discussion and will be voted on by the Zoning Commission on September 15th as well. So those are the major ones that are going on right now. The other major thing that's going on is we're trying to finish up the Weetog Village District project. That's something that we've worked on for a while now. Originally, the project was not really fully funded, and so we've completed about 2/3 of that work in terms of creating a village district in the Weetog section, that is the section from 185 up to Powder Forest Drive, basically in the area on both sides of the road, Mitchell's property, Simsbury Inn, in that whole area. That hopefully we'll find the rest of the funding to do that really soon and finish up that project. I'd like to finish that up this calendar year if we can possibly do that. So we'll see what happens with that.
They're going ahead, they're already mining the land down there on the Ensign Bickford deal.
Powder Forest, yes. They had an earth excavation permit for part of that before, Dave, that wasn't related to the PAD, but there was a number, they have asked for permission to excavate that to get it in shape so that the development on that particular parcel could come in and move forward very quickly.
Well, the assisted living, though, that deal's going to go ahead, right?
Well, I'm not certain of that.
Oh, okay.
When they come in with plans, I'd believe it.
They haven't done that, then? Huh?
Have not. No, we have a conceptual plan. The PAD has been approved, and what that means, as you know, is that once the master plan, development plan is approved, that's basically a sort of a blueprint for the process, but it's not a formal permit. And so they come back with a site plan, and then the zoning commission would act on the permit.
So it was going to be for
assisted living facility.
100+ units or something?
Yes, it was a good-sized facility. That's right. Yeah. The front of that was a commercial activity, some papers, a restaurant, some small offices that Ensign Bickford was talking about themselves. And then the third portion of that, over behind the inn, was some different types of housing that Landworks was considering because they're getting such a good response with the housing on West Street. They felt that this product was also needed as well. That'll also provide a kind of an interesting walking trail down to the bus stop on Winslow Place, which is the most heavily used parking lot that we have, commuter parking lot that we have. So that'll provide some access to those folks that want to live nearby and then walk down right to the bus stop, and they can take it to Hartford, into Hartford, right back out. So connect to the trail as well. So those are the major ones that are going on right now. I think unless there's some questions, unless you have other, yeah, Chris.
I have a question. Would it be possible for, with the help of EDC, to try to get out maybe a quarterly update to the papers to inform residents about the projects that are kind of in the works and what's going on? I think that for the residents and maybe local businesses who don't necessarily follow all the land use board minutes and everything that's going on, I know I get a lot of questions weekly about, well, what's going on with this and what's going on with that. I think it would be great PR for us to talk about all the positive things that are going on in town, to kind of get the word out, not only to inform residents, but to maybe attract future businesses to the area, knowing that, we're friendly and, we've got parcels that can be developed, and if we do it on a quarterly basis, maybe it's a great PR tool for us.
Sure, we can work something like that out. Sure, we can put it on the website, or we can do it another way, whatever other way you want to do it.
Or help, we can help write articles for.
I was just going to say, too, I know that the Chamber had that newsletter or it's a little bitty magazine that was going out, mailed to people's homes, and featured some local articles. And I can look back on an email I have for a contact. I don't know if
That hasn't gone out in a while.
It hasn't gone out in a while. I didn't know if it went away or.
It goes out electronically.
Yeah. Well, I get something mailed to my house. So just, in terms of, I think it'd be appropriate to also use the chamber as an avenue to get that information out.
I just think it would be a great PR tool for us because of all the great work that's going on and future developments, and as things get approved and things start moving forward, keeps the residents informed, and
Sure.
because you have to follow an awful lot of minutes and an awful lot of agendas to put all the pieces together.
Mm-hmm. Sure, absolutely glad to do that.
Well, and I'd be happy to help, but I think it'd be a great thing for our commission to take on to kind of promote us.
Any assistance is greatly appreciated. No question.
Got a lot on your plate, Hiram.
Does the town is active in social media?
There's that's a mixed blessing. I am not, and the reason I'm not is because we're so subject to FOI that anything I tweet to somebody is going to end up in front of some commission in Hartford at some point, and so I just don't play. I do email, no question about that. My own personal emails, somebody wanted to subpoena those at one time, so I just don't go there. So that's why I stay away from it. Some people do. I think Sarah probably does.
Yeah, and actually, during our Board of Selectmen meeting, and actually the task force had talked a little bit about this too, that Stephanie Reef, who's been hired by the town, who does some of the communications, how she would play a part in what the task force recommendations may come out in terms of, what she could take on to help with some of that stuff. So I think that speaks to sort of the goals and role of the EDC, and then the support of staff, not Hiram for all the reasons he's talking about, but somebody like Stephanie who posts stuff for the town on a lot of happenings, that are going on, so.
I could see value of like a LinkedIn page for the town, that you're and you get followers, little digests of snippets of information, because it's a professional, you could attract real estate people. They're all there on LinkedIn. Facebook is huge in Simsbury with Simsbury Moms Unite, or, a lot of, to let them know too. I see, a lot of people who are a part of that.
Well, and Dominique does a great job through the Facebook page on tourism, posting multiple times a day about things that are going on in town.
And SCTV as well, we're also on Facebook, which posts about things that are going on, when meetings are, what, you know, an excerpt from a meeting. The other day Nancy asked in the selectmen's meeting what a PAD is during Hiram's report, and
Oh, yeah, Sherry, she wanted people to know who were, you know, that don't pay attention all the time. that don't
exactly,
know
so,
what it
I
is,
mean,
yeah.
and so then I posted, and there's a lot of going back and forth, I posted about that.
I think there needs to be a strategy and plan or nothing gets done, you know? I mean, like, it's great, we all agree that maybe using the tools that exist already and maybe starting, you know, and they're free. It just needs to be managed and planned.
But even local papers like the Valley Press or Valley Life doing.
That's true, yeah,
Stories.
paper, old school.
I mean, old school, I mean, those are delivered to every house.
Everybody likes old school
I
still.
think we'll find some of those discussions coming out of the task force when we talk about the goals of the Economic Development Commission, so.
Does the town have a Facebook page? I don't even know.
No, it's only Simsbury Tourism does.
Okay. Only because if there was something to kind of, to your point, Chris, about, gee, it would be great to update folks on this stuff. And yeah, I think a quarterly something to the press would be terrific. But then, gee, someone's got to develop the content and do all that other stuff. If there was just a Simsbury Twitter handle and a Simsbury page just to tweet, because sometimes other people create content, and to the extent it's related to projects and development, you could say, hey, there's a new, you know, here's an update on, you know, whatever project. You could tweet it out. You may not get a lot of Twitter followers, but when that's integrated into your Facebook page,
I think
like to Carolyn's point with Simsbury Moms Unite, I mean, stuff will get
right.
kind of, and then at least it's a little easier to get the content out there because you're not relying on, you know, kind of someone here or Hiram to kind of create the content as stuff happens. You could say, it's like basically you're writing a headline and sending out the links.
Put the link to the agenda and the meeting minutes, but I think that's something that maybe the task force needs to look at, because I know there was an issue regarding Facebook. You have to be able to turn the comments piece off of it, because then we start engaging in, the town starts engaging in conversations that
Could
potentially have legal ramifications. So it needs to be informative only without back and forth on things. Just like I think the Simsbury Police had to turn their comment section off, and it was just purely announcements that were going out. So
Yeah.
maybe the
And
task
Main
force
Street
can
also
look.
has a page, Simsbury page, and they put information all the time on that as well. So, yes, absolutely. I mean, that was, you know, one of the main goals of the marketing report was to talk about how we would market the town, and so I think having all those discussions, but certainly the biggest thing is coming up with the content in terms of the avenues in which you distribute it. Those are there. It's just a matter of knowing which ones are best to use and how appropriately to use them. And so certainly I think that can be part of some sort of an evaluation.
Well, and I don't know all the legal ramifications of social media with the town, so.
And working Stephanie into that too, I think, and Dominique, who does a lot of that as well.
Since I'm on the task force, you mentioned your recommendation to do this type of quarterly or whatever, and that we had this discussion, and so they could add it to their, you know, things to think about as they're planning.
Great.
Lastly, I'd just like to mention too that, so all you board members know, that Rachel Blatt is the assistant town planner. Rachel just joined us last week.
Welcome.
She's just to come and see who's who and get a lay of the land here. So I just wanted you all to see her, and hopefully you'll be seeing more of her in the near future.
Great.
Welcome.
Thanks.
All right. Thank you. We have a presentation regarding 34 Hot Meadow Street.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Chris Ferrero from Fuss & O'Neill. I'm landscape architect and certified planner. And today we will show you a very brief presentation. At the end of the presentation, focusing on some of the economics and marketing components of it. But rather than roll through the same presentation we do for design review board and planning, and we're going to really sort of focus on just the background information, what we're trying to achieve, what the program is, and then what some of the economics that are predicted out of that program are. So what the process that we're in, somebody mentioned what is a pad zone, and it is a little bit confusing, and it's great to hear that you actually start to publicize that stuff. But as you know, the pad zone is a zone, an overlay zone that allows you to take an existing zone. In this case, it's the old River Oaks property, right, on Hop Meadow Street, bordering Avon, and overlay that zone, proposing uses that would not normally be allowed in that zone. And so Hiram and the town of Simsbury over the years has done a great job sort of refining that pad zone, and as part of that process, it requires us to go to a number of Simsbury's referral agencies, and this group is obviously one of them. Now, I had a long discussion with my friend Mark Demig about this, and he's not here, I know, but I do have some handouts at the end which he recommended, and we'll talk a little bit about the specifics of the economics a little bit toward the end. This shouldn't hopefully take more than 15 minutes or so, if you don't mind. Great. So what this application is it's a mixed-use application which the pad zone requires, and as part of that mixed-use application, these uses include residential components, and they include commercial or mixed-use components. Now, the particular use that will be constructed immediately is the residential component. And here today is Eli Pechtold, one of the partners in Garden Homes, and that is the housing component part of the development entity. Garden Homes is headquartered in New Jersey. I mean, they've built houses all over the country. The numbers are in the range of, I think, 40,000 rental units and an equal amount of condominium and for sale units across the Northeast and across the country. They have 4 or 5 projects already built and rented here in Connecticut, so they're not a stranger to this marketplace. So, you know, Eli Pechtold came to me when we were just sort of conceiving this and said, I love Simsbury, that's a great market. And I said, I love Simsbury too. I had my business there for 27 years. It's a wonderful place, and Simsbury has done a fantastic job over the last 10 to 15 years to go from what the high school kids used to call it Sims boring to something that's really exciting. So part of what you're going to see today has to do, for example, with the bike trail. This site, as you probably know, is located right on the bike trail. So we've improved that bike trail. Simsbury is the only bike-friendly community in the state. So this entire residential component of this project focuses on that bike trail, and we truly think that that bike trail is to some extent a hook for people that are interested in biking. And that bike trail obviously connects downtown Simsbury and the restaurants and the shops, as well as Avon and beyond, both north and south. So without further ado, not everybody can see this one. I apologize, you guys. Is that better? So, you're probably very familiar with this property as of a number of years ago. And before I get into or discuss any of the economics associated with River Oaks, which were large, I will tell you that in general, the density, the amount of square feet, the amount of coverage is about exactly half of what it was as part of that River Oaks application. So that'll give you some sort of framework as to what we're talking about. So
River Oaks was the Conover project?
Yeah, exactly. So the site, all told, is about 60 acres. It's comprised today of 2 parcels. The parcel to the south is about 26 acres, includes a small wetland. We have a very small wetland disturbance. We're going through the Conservation Commission process with that as well. The parcel to the north is the remaining plus or minus 34 acres. That obviously is the existing CLMP piece. That CLMP does not own the parcel. The parcel is owned all under a common ownership. The proposal includes, as I started to mention before, basically a mixed-use development in accordance with the PAD regulations. And that mixed-use development and the PAD regulations are very, very specific in terms of the proposal's conformance to the Plan of Conservation and Development. So in this case, the plan of conservation and development for this part of town, and in particular, this site, offers two preferred development alternatives. The first development alternative is office space or industrial, and that's what is currently zoned. Now, under that land use, you could cover the site with up to, up to 40% coverage with building and parking, and you could put the parking right up to Hot Meadow Street because basically that's an as-zoned, simple site plan approval. I think we probably can understand the nature of the market for that kind of a use these days, and I think the plan of conservation and development also understands that market by suggesting that there's an alternative way to develop this parcel, and it's stated as the preferred alternative, quote unquote, in the plan of conservation and development. Excuse me. So that preferred alternative lists a whole bunch of what are called development standards. So if you're coming in under this PAD regulation, under this alternative development proposal, us as designers, as planners, need to try to achieve the goals that are set for that development. And we paid, as part of the development of this plan, we paid particular attention to those sort of tenets, or those criteria. And I'll list just a couple of them. But before I do, how this would get broken down and how this would get developed is, I mentioned a minute ago that the existing site is two parcels, 1, 2. As part of the residential development, which would occur first, and because the residential development would have the fee simple rights to access to Hot Meadow Street and then grant access easements to the adjacent development properties, there would be a subdivision into, that piece would be subdivided into 3 parcels, comprised of the 14, plus or minus 14 acre piece, which is the subject of the residential component. Show you some more detail of that in a minute. And then, again, by the nature of that bifurcation, creating 2 parcels on the frontage of Hot Meadow Street for that future commercial development. At this point in time, the entire remainder of the northern piece would stay as a single parcel, although it would be anticipated that if there was future development interest in that first, that piece, that an additional subdivision line would be probably created there sometime in the future. So what this is, from the standpoint of the plan of conservation and development, I'm not going to go over every single tenant, I'm not going to go over every single thing, but the primary issues with the plan of conservation and development and this site are twofold. Views, 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 views. Views to the mountain. I mean, you can't stress it enough. So as part of this process, we went through somewhat of an exhaustive sort of visual analysis in terms of, if you're on Hot Meadow Street driving, you're looking up at the Talcott Ridge, how much of that ridge can you see given rooftops at different heights? And that analysis basically led us to some somewhat important conclusions, and those conclusions have to do with the second major component of the plan of conservation and development, and that's open space. So you'll notice that we have no development 150 to 200 feet from Hot Meadow Street. And part of that is a result of that analysis. So what that analysis told us is that these are one-story buildings. Because the peaks of those one-story buildings that far back, we should be able to see over those peaks and see somewhat of a continuous ridgeline. Now, the whole ridgeline is going to be obviously obscured to some extent. But in addition to that kind of a thing where you get a glimpse of the continuous ridgeline, we're creating what's called terminal view sheds. So these are view sheds which are just panoramic in nature. So the views to the Hugh Blind Tower are preserved, things of that nature, almost in all cases. So that is part and parcel to our analysis of the view sheds and how we try to mitigate that. So when I go through a description of the housing, which I'll talk a little bit more about in a minute, the commercial pieces, because they're closer to Hot Meadow Street, have the greatest impact on those views. We have a wetland system, which I mentioned a minute ago. That wetland system has mature trees. Those trees are 50, 60 feet tall. You don't currently have views to the distant mountains at those points. So that was an opportunity to bring things a little closer to Hot Meadow Street, to increase this. These are 2-story buildings, a little bit bigger buildings. But as you move past that, 1-story buildings here. As you move past the CLT property, 1-story buildings here, and probably a 2-story building here, because the farther you go into this site, you see more and more of the mountain range over the tops of buildings. So the site itself, the housing component, takes the same sort of design criteria in that it locates the lower buildings to the front and it locates the taller buildings to the back. So the lower buildings are two-story structures, and the housing product is a mix of townhouses and apartments, all of which will be rental components, as well as a clubhouse and recreation facility. The lower buildings in the townhouses and the two stories are all in the front of the site, and as you move back, the three-story buildings. Looking over the roofs of the three-story buildings is there's almost a negligible view 900 feet from Hop Meadow Street to those mountains. But the entire open space system connects throughout all of this and is focused on our bike trail. So the primary recreation open space, where we see bicycle storage, we see maybe even in the future somebody's interested in a small bike shop. I mean, bicycles to us is a big deal here, and the connectivity to that bike trail is a big deal. This is an enlargement of the residential component to get a better sense of our small wetlands disturbance here, how the site comes in. This is the terminal view that we're establishing across from Blue Ridge, and at this point you're looking way over the tops of buildings, and so from Hop Meadow Street and Blue Ridge, it's that panoramic view to the Hugh Line Tower. You can start to see the way we treated parking. We have a total of 181 units here, so that generates a lot of parking demand and circulation demand. But you don't see big parking lots in this site plan. So the parking is distributed, a lot of on-street parking that basically frames a lot of the public open spaces. And then the remainder of the parking is really to the backs of the buildings adjacent to other land uses that are not residential, such as office and of course the CLMP. And they're separated by large split pieces of open space that also have a lot to do with our stormwater management. Give you a sense of, Krosky Architects is the architect on the project, and they're no stranger to Simsbury. So they've done quite a bit of work here in town, but this is the largest of the buildings. This is the three-story apartments that would be located in the back along that bike trail. And what they're trying to do is obviously pick up on some of Simsbury's existing roof pitches, materials. We'll have the brownstone flashing at the bottom, you know, that type of thing. Details haven't been worked out yet, but that's at this point what we're thinking. So in the front, i.e. these mixed-use commercial buildings, we can't commit to what those are going to look like. Those will be different development entities. So once the housing has started, once the pad zone is approved, it's likely that interest in the property on the mixed-use components will be good, better than it is today. And at that point, individual developers or development entities will apply for application under the pad zone that has already been approved. If there's a substantial deviation in the development that the developer is proposing from the pad zone that's approved, in other words, somebody wanted to put buildings right on Hop Meadow Street after we've got a plan approved that says keep 150 to 200 feet away, they have to go through the whole zone change process again. So there's a true incentive for future developers to conform to the sort of tenets and guidelines that we're establishing as part of this process. So, long story short, we don't know if a future commercial building is going to look like that. But what we're suggesting is that the character, you know, our architects understand the character of Simsbury. We understand pitched roofs versus flat roofs. We understand what design review board is going to be looking for. And this is a characterization only of what those one-story commercial buildings may look like. So I'd like to pass these out, kind of go over them early.
Thank you.
These are 3 slides of a slideshow that the slideshow of which we're giving to planning and design review board and then subsequently the zoning commission. But they're the market assessment and the fiscal analysis slides. So I just can kind of walk you. It's somewhat self-explanatory. The first page is the market assessment on the residential side. there's a lot of rental units being built and developed, as we know. I've been involved in Simsbury with some of them, with the Landworks projects, for example. So a question that comes up to us all the time, and one which I'm very familiar with in many, many towns right now, is absorption, and is there a market? And the market folks are still saying that there is a market. And this slide sort of goes through why there is a market. It goes through what the expected rental rates for these units will be, and a possible absorption rate into the future. The next page of this handout addresses, I guess, a similar question, I guess a logical question that everybody would have would be, great, residential's fine, when's the commercial coming? When's the tax base coming? When's that front stuff coming? And it's an important question. So what this starts to do is our market folks, first they look at retail leakage, they look at a number of different issues which would begin to target what isn't currently in Simsbury and what could conceivably be in Simsbury, and that's what you see under this heading called potential uses. So there is opportunities for a specialty grocery store, home furnishing improvements. So basically our marketing people are listing out all of these market components that currently are money is being spent outside of town on these particular components. What they're suggesting is that the absorption of that into this site is a function of capture, what the market folks call capture. So how much of that leakage can be captured at any given place? Their take on this is that 181 brand new units in a nice facility is a great jumpstart to capture. It begins that, it gets you over the inertia, and it begins to make these parcels really somewhat vibrant. Could that happen tomorrow? Yeah, or no. But the prediction is 1 to 5 years where there'd be potentially development interest in the initial mixed-use areas. So the final slide, I guess, is the so what, and it begins to look at the tax implications or fiscal implications of what we're proposing. And I think it's pretty clear to say that with 168,000 square feet of new commercial and mixed use, that's a pretty good tax base for the town. A net increase, not including, by the way, taxes that are currently being paid by CL&P. So this is a net increase of $834,000 annually. But frankly, it's not fair to just use those statistics, and we directed our marketing people to say, well, the housing is going to be built first, and the rest of it might not be built for a while. So how many school kids are we dealing with? What is the fiscal impact of this type of housing on taxation? So from the standpoint of school kids, which is clearly by far the largest chunk of expenses that a municipality pays for residential use, we estimate 27 children. And the reason for that is the vast majority of these units are one-bedroom units. There are standard formulas per bedroom for estimating the number of school kids per unit. Now, we also took the previous application, Landworks application at the Powder Forest. They did basically a school analysis, a school impact analysis. Fundamentally, we're using the exact same numbers they did. It's the same study. We're applying them and adding them to the conclusions that they arrived at. So that number of school children, predicated on somewhat of a declining school population here in town, certainly does not have any impact on the school system, and the expenses associated with 27 children accounts to about $380,000 a year. Your municipal services on a per unit basis, again, standard stuff right from the assessor's office and standard databases. Municipal services, $233,000 a year, and if you subtract all of that from the real estate property taxes that this development would spin off, you'd end up with a net positive of a little over $200,000 a year. So that's a brief outline of what we're proposing, and some of the fiscal impacts of that, and I'm certainly here to answer questions.
Where do you stand in the process at this point?
We are right in the throes of going through the referral agencies. So 2 days ago, we presented in front of the planning board. Last week, we were in front of the Conservation Commission. Monday night, we were in front of Design Review Board. Tuesday night, we're back in front of planning. It's a lot of presentations. So the outcome of each of these presentations from each of these referral agencies is a referral. And obviously, that's what we're looking for from this commission is hopefully a positive referral to the zoning commission for this project.
Your stake in the ground is ahead of what's going to happen possibly with the Hartford, right?
Mm-hmm. Our stake in the ground? I don't understand.
Well, being first through the door, so to speak, because no one knows what's going to happen down at the Hartford, except as you know as much as we do, basically. So the question is, obviously two projects of this size, and I assume the total cost of this project is 30 or 40, $50 million. I don't know the number, but somewhere in that range, right? Well, the same kind of concept would go forward to the Hartford. And obviously those two, they would be competitive projects, assuming something similar comes from the Hartford.
Yeah, well, I mean, the first page of this slide, our market folks have estimated that Simsbury can absorb an additional 175 units per year for the next 5 years. Not all of that is because of brand new people. A lot of that is from turnover. And that's not all turnover from Simsbury, that's turnover from Granby and Canton and other places as well, as new housing stock comes back online. I'll admit, a little bit, it is a first-in thing. We've done a lot of work on Town Center, for example. So we know that Town Center wants to have 200 and 300 units of housing right here in downtown. Different type of housing, different product, different market, whole different thing. But, this is the market that is playing out right now, and our folks are telling us that market can absorb what we're proposing right now.
One of the interesting, this is an observation, okay, not a criticism, et cetera, but, projects were brought before the town, and some of the pot of forest projects were age restricted and all that because we had such a growing school population. Well, the trend is now, as you know, changed, and the educators want you to bring kids in here because obviously they're going to go out of business if they don't, right?
Would you like more 3-bedroom units?
Well, that's the point I'm trying to make, because support of the educational population would be just the opposite of what it was, say, 15, 20 years ago,
You're absolutely right.
It's just an observation, that's all.
What's happening in Simsbury, by the way, is not unusual at all with respect to the school systems, except for the inner cities.
I don't know if anybody knows what the demographics are this year on the school population.
They don't come out with those numbers until October on enrollment.
Somebody was talking about it was going to be down another 72 kids or something.
They do a head count, I think, at the beginning of October.
I think that was an early estimate. I don't know if it's.
I actually have the numbers. As of the first day, there were 4,235 children enrolled, and they have projected 4,253. So they were off, so it's
But was
slightly.
it,
Except the junior high school had 18 more kids than expected.
was that a net decrease in the overall from the prior year?
That I don't know.
That's kind of the key to it, right?
As Nancy said, the full enrollment report will be
Right.
made at the beginning of October.
Yeah, I mean, this discussion is not necessarily germane,
No,
but looking at the prior year only with respect to school enrollment is not the most accurate. I mean, you have capital plans. The Board of Education develops capital plans that extend out 10 years, and they've got studies that extend out 10 years. And
25 years ago, we had a school population of about 5,400 kids. Now we're down in the low 4,000, projected to go down into the 3. So, it's just the way, I'm sure that's true all around. So.
Yep.
20 years ago, was it?
Jay, you had a comment?
No.
Oh.
No.
Does anybody else have any other questions? So you're looking for a recommendation from?
Positive referral.
When you went before planning, you have to go back several times to them before they make the referral? Do they need more information, or did you just give them the same thing, or you gave them additional? I'm just curious.
Planning got a 45-minute slideshow presentation outlining every little aspect of the plan of conservation and development and its relativity to this project.
Got it. Okay.
So planning had a number of questions that we're going to be answering at the next planning commission meeting.
Okay, so that you're coming back to answer
Oh, yes.
additional questions
Yes.
and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess just in terms of feedback, I mean, just to be blunt, it's hard to get excited about 181 apartment units. If this was something that was kind of coordinated with some other kind of commercial aspect about bringing in, bringing in businesses along with it, then that becomes a lot more interesting. But, so we've got a limited just in terms of, kind of how I'm looking at it, it's like, it's a prime piece of real estate, very limited development area, and the first thing that we're putting in is apartments. And that has the opportunity, if nothing else happens, that has the opportunity to go south. And there's not much you could do with, it's hard to repurpose apartments.
Why would it be bad?
Apartments, while the demographics that you're looking at now are okay, if nothing else comes of it, they change, and there's other costs that come into play as well.
But why would that be bad? I think he's saying that they don't have there isn't a project out there that's going to bring both all at the same time, so they'd want to put the apartments in first, get the people there. I guess, what would be bad about having the apartments first if nothing else happened?
Then you have apartments.
Yeah.
And there are apartments, and over time, you see what happens to kind of rental house. If there's nothing dynamic, if this isn't a dynamic, flourishing area, then what you have is 181 apartments on an island, and over time they go from being apartments that are demographically consistent with the town to stuff that isn't. If there's nothing else, that's my concern.
Yep. I guess this is a bit of a philosophical discussion, so usually I start this discussion with the market is the market is the market. So today, there's no market, or I shouldn't say no market. There's a limited market in that big field. If there was a market, we would have some interest. Secondly, the likelihood of a magnitude of development that would cover a 60-acre site, front to back, is even probably less likely. So what you will get is you will get smaller interests. I'm going to try to address a couple of these comments. These are small buildings on purpose, except for that one. That's the grocery store if it needs to be, for example. Grocery store is potentially a real opportunity. Out of all of those opportunities, the grocery store is probably, like a Whole Foods or something like that. But this is relatively small scale retail. I don't know, our market people can certainly look at the Home Depots, the Walmarts.
No.
You don't want those anyway. But those are the types of facilities that would fill these kinds of sites.
I don't think we're looking. Well, I'm not looking for filling. I'm not looking for doing something to fill up as many square feet as possible.
Right.
It's, we want to grow the tax base. We want to do so responsibly, and we're in the position. This is the position I see that we're in, is because there's not a lot of land where we have a lot of development opportunities to do things. I think we just have to be very careful with what we select. We need to do things. I don't want to, I feel like I'm always, bringing up criticisms. I don't want to be Dr. No here. No, because we need development. I'm not against development, but I think we need to be very careful about the type of development that we do. And I get concerned when, I get concerned for a number of reasons. One is when the discussion is beginning with apartments. And then, secondly, to kind of sound like a broken record to my colleagues here, is that, we've got this limited resource and we don't have we don't really have leadership in terms of how we're going to best develop it. There's, my soapbox has been, we need a director level person of economic development who puts food on their table by figuring out how to bring business into Simsbury. We have a very unique situation here. Very highly educated population, fantastic schools, wonderful place. I think there's a lot of companies that can come in here. And when we're just focusing on 181 unit, kind of apartment places to start, it's like we haven't given other things a chance.
How big do you, excuse me,
Sure.
The whole project, if it were fully developed, would be,
168,000.
what size would it be?
So you're looking at 168,000 square feet of mixed use or commercial, or whatever that is, that I think you're talking about, and 181 apartments. So I guess my take is, why can't those businesses still come into town?
How big would that be dollar-wise?
It's on here.
It's on here.
34. It's based on taxes, that,
Yeah.
800,000 plus.
Well, that's parcel one and parcel two?
That's just for taxes, not land use permits. I mean, land use permits is an additional,
Yes, 800.
The thing is, though, like, what would you're not going to get the businesses to come first. Or don't the people want to, if you put the people there first, wouldn't they bring the businesses? Like, if you do,
Well, but
if
it's
you do,
not
if you do,
There's other places to live. Like, so let's suppose you bring, a software company, a biotech company, a financial services company. I'm not talking about 10,000 employees. Monoside. You bring those guys in. You sell them on coming to Simsbury. There's places people can live.
oh, yeah, if you're going to bring a company in here, sure, like an employer, I thought, but if,
Yeah, no, I'm talking about employers.
Well, that's
I'm
not-
talking
okay, but that's not our charge as an
that's not
economic,
connected to the
I mean,
project.
we have a project presented to us that we are not a land use board. We are simply charged with recommending or not recommending projects that impact the growth of our grand list, and it's up to the planning, zoning, conservation boards to approve or not approve projects that are appropriate for particular parcels.
I understand we're
he's
not a
saying
land
hold
use
out,
board.
he's saying
but-
hold out for the company, is what you're saying.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
saying there needs to be a holistic approach to doing this. You can't, because when you look at things in a siloed fashion, you get unintended consequences. Okay, I'm not saying that, I don't think that there might be room for something like this, because maybe there is. But I just get concerned when it appears to be, when we're not, the most important thing in my view, with respect to economic development, is having new businesses locate here, having businesses that are here, encouraging them to grow. So what I view as the priority of economic development is bringing high-paying jobs into Simsbury from companies that aren't here anymore. I think a project like this might be able to support that, but I get concerned, but without seeing it as part of a larger vision, I just have some concerns.
I mean, the Powder Forest is, frankly, a great example of what you're talking about. That is an office park, fundamentally an office park. And the market is not supporting an office park. So the Powder Forest is, quite frankly, doing the exact same thing that we're here doing before you now.
Right.
Completely market-based, although I do agree that there might need to be a more holistic look at where you reserve for those future opportunities and where you don't.
But to your point, Jay, how many parcels in town do we continue to hold out for the big one to come when they're not coming?
Well, they're
So-
not coming because we're making no concerted effort to do anything to bring businesses to Simsbury. That's my point. That's the problem. That's the fundamental problem that I have with how the town is approaching this from the Board of Selectmen's office down. I mean, that's where my concern is.
Do some of the other buildings, I see what you've talked about, potential uses, are any with regard to office buildings? Is that part of the
It could be.
concept?
It could be. We're just saying right now, those front buildings are mixed use. So they could be office, they could be retail, they could be restaurant, they could be whatever fundamentally the market would bear.
In addition, another potential use that I don't see on here that I've always talked about for years and years and years in Simsbury we don't have is a hotel situation. Has that been discussed at all so far in that complex?
No, but it could be. Under this application, it could be. A hotel, a very one or two story hotel.
Right.
Would be my
Right.
guess. Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
Right.
that kind of thing, right.
Mm-hmm. That it just, we don't have a lot in Simsbury.
We don't.
And a lot of people come here, they're staying in
Yep.
Farmington, Avon,
Windsor.
down Windsor, the airport.
Yep.
And I've seen that through different projects that we've done over the years, that people are, when they come to an event here, they're not staying here all the time. They'll stay in some of the hotels we do have, but I don't think we have enough in the right area. And I just thought that was one that I didn't see on this potential use list that I would think would have some market demand.
The beauty of the pad regulation is that it's market-based, so it can absorb
I know.
and change in accordance with the market.
Right.
What I like about this project is that you're putting people close to the beauty and charm of the town.
Yeah.
And I would want to live there. I mean, the views is what you have to
And the
market.
Noddbrook Wildlife Sanctuary is right.
I mean, it's going to be a draw, I would think, because
You
of the
want to put down a
views.
deposit?
I would love to.
She'd like to sign a lease.
It'd be a good deal. It'd be a good deal.
Jay, you in?
Thinking of residential just makes sense to be in that area, to have livelihood in that area that is usually dead. So, I would support this. I don't know if we want to recommend or what the next step
Are you-
is.
are you making a motion?
I think we should think about it,
Think about it.
talk about it next time.
Well, timing-wise, that's kind of why I asked.
Right.
They got to go before the planning a few
Our next
times.
meeting is in the second week of October, and where does that put?
Where does that put you in front of zoning?
That's going to be kind of ahead of the curve. with
Because we
that.
don't want to have
Zoning isn't going
happen.
to look at this in October, I'm sure. They're not that
Right.
close. They haven't had public hearing, I mean, they haven't done anything.
If I
I don't think we're
may,
going to lose time.
Introduce myself, I'm Robin Pearson, I'm working with the team on this proposal. We do have a zoning hearing on October 6th.
Yeah, so you got to
So
be
that's,
before that.
Yeah.
by that point, we need to have our reports in.
When's the public hearings?
On October 6th. That's-
Yeah, we
Oh,
meet
zoning,
after that.
That is the public
That is
hearing.
the-
And
That
then the
is
zoning
public hearing.
meetings would be after that, right?
Yeah, I don't, they could vote that night, but the public hearing, at which point they need your recommendations,
Right.
will be
And our
October
meeting is
6th.
after that.
it
We
should
need
be
to do
this
something. We,
I've listened very closely to everything that you've said, and I just think it might be helpful to add a few additional words. Some of you have expressed a desire to have a holistic approach to this. It is true that the only thing you have in front of you is the development for this particular parcel, but it is holistic to the extent that what we're doing is pursuing a planned area development plan, and that is indeed something your town has determined is the appropriate way to go as an incentive for future development, as a way of enticing businesses to come to town to say, look, we've already done the groundwork, we've adopted a proposal that says you can have mixed development on this whole, 60 acres? So that's what this is. It is a plan that will excite, hopefully, businesses to come in. A key component of it is going to be the residential, just because, what do businesses say? What do they look for in Connecticut? They look for decent taxes, they look for an exciting community, they look for housing. Housing for workers, but also, your point was a very good one, housing that creates excitement. And the way this is designed, this is going to pull in young professionals and empty nesters. That's really who's going to be locating in that complex if it's approved. Those are people that are going to get on their bikes, they're going to use the bike trail, they're going to go to the restaurants, and they're going to work in any offices or businesses that are in that area. They're going to bring, again, excitement to Simsbury. That's why West Hartford is flourishing right now. It's going strongly with housing that attracts young professionals, and it's made itself a very exciting place. People want to be there. Companies want to be there. you have an opportunity here to do what the plan of development, conservation and development says, which is create a mixed-use development plan. Housing has to be a component of it, and the housing doesn't dictate what happens on the rest of the site. You already have a signature piece with the office that's been developed. The housing is in towards the back more, but it's really going to be an incentive for other things to happen on this site in accord with a plan that protects open views, open space areas, connects to the bike trail. It's everything your plan of conservation and development says should be doing.
Jay, do you know, like, let's say we held out for the company, right? And the big biotech company came and put their headquarters there, whatever. I mean, do we have any idea? Does that generate more than the total as if it were, first developed with housing and then some, stores and stuff came? Do we have any idea what would be better in terms of the grand list? Do we have any sense of that?
I have no idea what's
Yeah.
going to move the needle more. It's not entirely the numbers of the project, because if you bring, so let's say, for example, you did bring that type of company here, biotech and that sort of thing, they're going to generate taxes, and they're going to generate whatever taxes that they're going to create. What they're also going to do is they're going to create demand for housing, and that's going to bring housing values up. They're going to, when you're attracting a company that is employing people at higher salary points, you're going to be bringing in a lot more than just the taxes that are generated from the facility that particular company occupies.
And to follow up on that, and for that reason, you want to have higher-end, new, multifamily housing. Because, as an example, Chris works with a large engineering firm, and when they're trying to attract engineers into their business, they're looking for places nearby that are nice places to rent very quickly. Those are the same people. I have 2 associates in my office who just rented for a year and a half in West Hartford, and because of their experience with the community, now have put down an offer on a small home, their starter home. This is a perfect kind of facility to bring in people from out of state who are the people that will need to work at those biotechs. They come in to Simsbury, they have a wonderful place where they can, really, next to a nature preserve, it's just everything that young professionals are looking for.
So what's going to be in parcel 1B aside from apartment buildings?
Clubhouse and townhouses, so they're not all apartments.
Okay.
There's some townhouses, there's clubhouses.
But they're all
So
rental units.
clubhouses-
They're all rental, yes, they're all rental.
So in terms of facilities, amenities, what?
Yep, swimming pool, tennis court, clubhouse, meeting
Workout
space,
area.
workout area, yeah.
Okay.
I like that it's close to the Avon line, because if we have Jack's Labs coming in Farmington, and that's an easy commute. So we're going
Yeah.
to draw those people to Simsbury who work there.
Yeah. And this is really, it's 2 things. One is, the statistics are, and we actually wrote it in those slides that we gave you, residents of this nature will spin off $40,000 a year in spending in the town of Simsbury. And in this case, probably some in the town of Avon due to proximity. But this is really a mixed-use area. So unlike some of the other areas of town that have been subject to this kind of thing, you've got retail and restaurants right next door. You have office and employment on both sides of this. You have multifamily residential already across the street. This is already a mixed bag, and you can walk to all of that stuff.
I'm trying to make sure I'm properly oriented. Parcels 1A and 1B, is that the Avon line right next to it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, so there's the office complex, then there's the
Riverdale Farms.
Riverdale Farms.
If you go to the right, as I'm looking at it, you start to pick up the Hartford property, right?
No.
Hartford's way, Hartford down quite a bit.
What's next to the?
Chubb.
Chubb.
Right,
Oh, that's Chubb,
Chubb.
in between.
right,
Okay.
right.
Good.
And then you have the trail to the east and the whole preserve down there, and it's
This is a mixed-use area.
it's an exciting
Definitely is.
area.
Yeah.
So what's that existing building in parcel 2?
That's the answer.
This is CLP,
That's the
right?
elevation.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Is there a motion from anyone on the board?
Tuck, is there a motion?
Do we have to vote on it?
Not
today?
yet.
No.
No, I'm asking if there is
I have
one.
another question.
Okay, Dave.
What was the timing again on?
October
when I
6th is their public hearing for zoning. If we're going to have any recommendation, we'd have to have it in before then.
Why?
Because
we have
that's
Otherwise,
the
it can't be.
Yeah, but why do we have to have our recommendation in before the public hearing, just out of curiosity?
Because then
Because
zoning
public
doesn't,
hearing is closed and then
accept
zoning
it.
won't take any.
Well, zoning doesn't accept it anyway. I mean, they would accept the letter from us whether it came at a public hearing.
No.
No, they can't legally, they cannot.
That's what happened with the
That's just
other
what
project.
happened with the other project.
You yourself was asking, why is that? I mean, we're not part of any official process. Zoning doesn't have to listen to us one bit before or after. Why is that? I'm just saying, why is it? Like, just like the last one, right? The guy said, oh, well, we're here even though it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter anyway. You were even saying the same thing.
Well,
What-
it
what-
doesn't
what is-
matter at that point. However, if
You
we
want to
write,
disband the commission with that attitude, come on. We
If-
have an
I'm not
input
saying
on
that. I'm just saying that I'm just asking, you know, whether we write a letter yay or nay now, or whether we do it 2 days after the public hearing, what's the difference?
The zoning
Well-
commission cannot accept nor consider
Consider.
our recommendation after the public hearing is
Why?
closed.
because
Just
if
by
it's
law.
by law,
What-
and
but
if.
that doesn't make any sense. We're not submitting as part of the public here.
That's
As the assistant planning director, can you speak to that?
No, but like,
They can accept anything from anyone during the course of the hearing. The question will be if the hearing is only one night, they can't accept new testimony after the hearing is closed. So if they
Right.
have a hearing that goes 2 meetings and you get it in after the first meeting, you'll be okay. If they close that hearing the first night, which there's always not possibility of happening, then they can't accept anything after that.
But legally, the point still remains. As long as the hearing is open, they can accept the recommendation of the agency. But once the hearing's closed, the hearing is closed. And that's it. No new testimony.
so you're just saying that we're just essentially just the public, right? I mean, that's not, I mean.
Yes.
Right.
In terms of the
Yes.
recommendation,
Yes,
but
we are.
I would not suggest for a second that your recommendation isn't important. It's
Oh, no,
very
I'm not
important.
trying to overinflate its importance.
It's not important to the extent that should you recommend a denial, it's not going to force the hand of the zoning board, but it is extremely important, and that's why it's built into the process. And that's why we're here.
That's precisely why, when we missed the last one on the pool bond, we were able to get Mark to go and get PR on this in the Valley Press on what our position was, so the public would know what the commission had supported.
However, if
Well,
that
but what-
particular recommendation or article is as I understand it, if it's referenced by any of the zoning board at the hearing,
They can't consider
they
it.
can't consider that because.
But it's all public relations. in terms of
Right,
how
but
we-
we're here, we're charged as a commission about growing the grand list,
Correct.
not about the approval of any land use, that's not our job. So we either need to make a motion or not make, we should vote on this today, yes or no, but there's not a motion on the table right now. But in order for it to be considered by zoning, in light of the fact that their public hearing could possibly be closed that same evening, we would need to do it today.
No, from a timer perspective, it's appropriate to do it today, discuss it, however we decide and vote, But we shouldn't wait till the next meeting, given the fact that it could be closed and
Right.
doesn't support it. So we should provide whatever input we want, whatever opinions we want, for whatever reasons we want, discuss it, vote on it, and how it's voted should move forward to the Land Use Commission. So I'll make a motion that we should send a positive recommendation to the Land Use Commission by way of a letter and ask the chairman or you to speak at that public hearing in support of this project, given that it falls within the parameters of mixed-use development in an area that has a PAD that is applicable to it and appears to fit within the neighboring area. So I think from a neighboring perspective, with offices to the right, residential across the street, offices to the left, and retail in there, and also multi-use right in that area, this type of component, I think, fits well in that project, and I think neighbors who have had concerns for larger building and projects in the past should be more accepting of this type of development and the considerations that they've given to the sight lines and views. So I would put that motion forward.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Well, any discussion?
Any discussion?
People should give their yays or nays now.
I mean, I'd really like to drive by, I'd really like to visit the site, quite honestly.
You can abstain.
I hate doing that again.
You got a history of it, go ahead.
Is there any further discussion?
Yeah, I generally, I mean, you know, I get the idea of holding out for like, you know, some ideal company or whatever. I get that. And I kind of don't know what, like in the end, does that make us better or worse off? So I get that idea, but I don't really know enough about it. And the houses do fit, and you know, my concern would be preventing the big monster project, you know, that we almost had before, and if you put the housing in first, it sort of lays it. We're not going to get that. Right.
Well,
it prevents that from ever happening again.
Right. So on that basis,
and it would be a driver, right? I mean, I get it. People would live there. I mean, people would live there if you fit the right, you know, if it's, you know. So I get it. People would.
Jay's
live
point
there.
of trying to bring in jobs, then worry about the retail, I understand, but that model hasn't really proven to work in our town. We can still work on it, and I think we should, and I think we can do that, and I think there's parcels here that can allow that to happen.
Well, and it is
I think there are some office potential areas that could do that and fit in, but I think this location, given the sensitivity of the neighbors and everything that is the history of it, this type of project answers a lot of those, and I think, like you just said, starting with that component of residential eliminates some potential fears, whether founded or unfounded, of what else could go there. And I agree that to make the whole project work, they're going to have to add those commercial components to it. But I think the way they've done it, they set themselves up to allow smaller investments in some of the subdivided areas.
Yeah.
What goes in there, I think some of these would be nice. I've mentioned some others, office complex could go in. So I think this type of project, in starting the way they do, I actually think it will help generate the other items.
Yeah, I'm being close to persuaded. I just feel I'd personally, to the extent we vote, I'd likely abstain. I'd like to, I just like to visit the site before I voted. I'm more positively inclined than negatively, but I'd feel like I'd want to visit the site before I voted. I'm not suggesting we don't.
Is there any additional discussion? No. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Any abstentions?
Yes.
Okay. So noted.
So we should, you should
So
talk to
I
Mark
will
about
talk
the
to
letter
Mark and
being there.
And we will send a letter to the boards and the commissions and be present at the public hearing. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Does anybody have any old or new business in light of the hour before we?
I have a quick one. I gave a handout.
I know.
Which is just information.
Okay.
On how the state has changed its regulations concerning stock water companies. It's very germane for what's been going on in the town.
Okay.
And when you read that, it's kind of a synopsis from a newspaper, but it gives you the viewpoint where they've literally taken the risk out of water companies, stock water companies.
Okay.
And it's pretty important.
And then I would say, we on this agenda, we have Hiram down at the bottom. In terms of agendas moving forward, having the...
Yeah, let's put them first.
I had suggested him being put
Right
at the
after
beginning.
Yes.
But it
Right
was
after
around
guest.
the presentation.
Right, well, I think any presentation, any guest coming in like
Yes.
that should go first.
Yes.
Unless they, for some reason, they can't get here on time.
Right.
But I would keep Hiram up in the top
Yes.
two, and
Agreed.
some of the reporting towards the bottom, and some of our discussion in there, because as we get to these, this
Right.
timeframe, people need to leave.
Right.
And some of the more important discussions we have for long-term planning and strategy get
Agreed.
washed away time after time.
Okay.
So that's my
Well, since
suggestion.
it's just the four of us, is there a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I think we should stay for a little while longer.
I second that.
Yeah.
Well, somebody needs to make a motion.
Motion.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I second,
My
whatever.
gosh, it's my birthday and I've been here way too long.
Your birthday? Happy
Yes,
birthday.
Mark gave me a cupcake.
birthday?
It's my birthday today.
Oh, we should have sang happy birthday.
And it's a really bad birthday.